some children, reading is a real struggle, and there can be all sorts of barriers that make it a frustrating, upsetting, or boring experience. And that can lead to battles at home trying to get them to do any sort of reading, even if it's part of their essential mandatory homework. Now, I think it's really important for home not to try and replicate school. We're not there to be teachers. Home needs to be home and school needs to be school. So instead of focusing on the different ways that schools teach reading, I instead focus on the ways that parents and carers can support reading at home. And that's all about developing a love of reading. Because if children love stories or other types of reading materials, then it's going to be much easier for them to learn how to read. So there are 3 steps to this. The first is make it easy. The second is get creative. And the third is do it together. And this video is going to focus on that first step, which is about making it easy. So the first thing that I would recommend is trying to create some sort of reading space at home. Now, depending on what your home is and how much space you have, this could be quite different for different people. But think about whether you can create some kind of nook somewhere where there might be nice cushions or a blanket or a beanbag or a specific chair, something that makes it nice and cozy, a relaxing environment that's welcoming that a child wants to go to. And if you can create that together, even better, because then the child has a sense of ownership over this space that they've got. If they've got a nice space that they want to go to, then it's going to make them associate reading with that nice, calm space. The second thing is to make sure that reading materials are easy to access and that they're visible for that child, so that reading doesn't have to be something that needs to be thought about, planned, prepared. It can be something they can do at any moment. So it might be that you have a bookcase in their bedroom or wherever you've got your reading space that they can easily reach and take the books off themselves. And if you don't have one of those or you don't have space for that, even a box or a basket or a bag of books, somewhere that they can reach and that they're allowed to go whenever they want to. Even if they're not reading the book, if they're just looking at the pictures or holding it, that's all a step in the right direction. The third thing is to make sure they can actually read what you're providing for them. It may be that the text is too small, so it puts them off because they see all of that text on a page and it's too overwhelming. It might be that the materials are too babyish and actually they want something that is a little bit more grown up. It might be that the page is too white. Some children find that quite difficult and some colour is much better for them. So just make sure that they can actually read what it is that you're providing them, because you don't want that to be a barrier before you've even started thinking about the story and the actual reading. So my fourth thing is for you to help them out. It is okay for you to sit and read with them or tell them what a tricky word is. If they're sat there battling over what a word is, what's it mean, how do you pronounce it, then they're going to start to feel frustrated. They're going to start to feel quite self-critical, and it's going to put them off reading. They're not going to want to go through that experience. And they also lose the story because they spent so long working out what that word is that actually they've forgotten what the story was or what that character was doing. So they're not going to love that story. They're not going to enjoy reading. So don't be afraid to tell them what a word is. You don't have to spend hours waiting for them to sound it out. We want them to love the experience and not feel badly about it. And the final thing that I would recommend in this step is for you to think about whether something like rhyme and repetition would be useful for your child. So sometimes what can be helpful is to read the same books more than once, because that familiarity will help them to kind of think about what the words might be and what the story is. And that can take away some of the unknown, some of the words they might not be able to know. It can be quite helpful. However, it doesn't work for everyone because it could become a little bit boring and then they might not want to read and they might not develop that love of reading because it's the same old books again and again. Variety is important, but repetition can help in terms of the familiarity and the comfort of that, taking away some of that nerves of the unknown and what's going to come up. Rhyme can also be quite helpful, and a lot of young children have books that have rhymes in them, and they do that because it creates this nice little rhythm, and it also helps children to know what words might be coming up because they can think about what they rhyme. with in the previous sentence or the previous couple of lines. So sometimes rhyming books can be quite helpful because they're fun, they offer a bit of a tone, a bit of a rhythm that can be quite helpful for reading, and also children can guess some of the words a little bit, which can be quite helpful. There may be other things that you can think of that fit in with this step, but those things I think can be really useful. So that's creating a nice, welcoming reading space. It's making sure that reading materials are accessible and available to your children at all times. It's making sure they can actually read what it is that you're providing them. It's making sure that you help them if they need help and not being afraid to tell them what the word is. And it's also about thinking about whether repeating certain books or things like rhyme might help take away some of that nerves of the unknown and make it a little bit easier for them to get to grips with the story in front of them. I hope you find these things useful, and do make sure that you look out for the next 2 videos that will go through the next 2 steps of how to support reading at home and develop that all-important love of reading.